Pues las páginas se quedan cargando. Me va a tocar recargar datos. No, ustedes se conectan y se vuelven a ir y me dejan sola. No se quedan conmigo, yo voy a poner a tirar.
Píchenlo pues.
¿Qué me habías visto con el cabello diferente? Acá estoy con el viento de la rosa de Guadalupe. O así como, ¿cómo te refieres? ¿A qué te refieres? Hola, Lucas. Gracias. Ay, yo leí que Miguel y es Midael. Ay, Dios mío, ustedes esos nombres. Yo que no veo casi, me toca hacer. En Colombia, colombiana.
Mono no way.
Silencio, una momia. ¿Has visto una momia?
Someone is a true operator. Someone is a gifted sniper. Someone takes up damage like Chuck Norris. Someone just a winner in life. But you don't need to be that cool to play tanks well. It's enough to understand the game mechanics, know how they work, and use this knowledge in battle. I'll talk about the mechanics, and the rest is up to you.
Bueno, pana, vamos a jugar tanques.
The visibility system. A keystone. A giant turtle that holds up the earth. You may not believe it. You may be surprised by it. You may argue about it. But whether you like it or not, it works. And smart tankers have used its features for their benefit for a long time. Roughly speaking, the visibility system in World of Tanks can be divided into two, though inseparable components: concealment and view range. Today, we'll talk about view range. A little bit of theory to begin. Our confidential informant will tell you about it.
Every tank in the game has 7 visibility checkpoints and 2 view range ports. The latter are needed to spot enemy vehicles. These ports emit virtual vision rays. If these rays cross the visibility checkpoints on the enemy vehicles, then an enemy is spotted. To understand the location of these points better, imagine your favorite vehicle. And now we'll cover it with the box. Turret location, gun length, machine guns, and antennas don't affect the box size. Only the overall size of the vehicle's physics model is taken into account. So there's a checkpoint right at the center of the box roof. 2 more checkpoints are located at the front and at the back of the vehicle. Another 2 are at the sides. So that's 5. The 6th point is on the gun mantlet, and it's aligned with the 7th. As soon as the turret's position changes, one of these points moves together with the mantlet, and the other is. The upper checkpoint and the point on the gun mantlet also function range ports.
Hey, easy. Theory's good, but how do you use it in the battle? Let's see some specific examples. You're standing behind cover. Allies are behind you. The enemy is ahead. Some are asking you to light them up. Others are waiting for free damage. In a situation like this, don't try to spot the enemy this way. You're exposing your checkpoint, but your viewports are still behind cover. You've got yourself spotted, but haven't spotted the enemy. And you've also taken a lot of damage. This is how you should do it. Turn your turret and carefully try to spot the enemy. With your viewport on the gun mantlet, your allies fire off. You save your HP and receive a bonus for spotting. Everybody's happy. And another example. You don't need to rush in and spot the enemy first. It's pretty risky.
¿La conseguiste?
Sure, you'll see them, but you won't last long. To be a good scout and keep yourself safe, you can stay on your side of the hill. You just need to roll up the hill and point your turret in the right direction. The view range port in the gun base will give you all the information, and you almost don't risk anything. Let's move forward. 2 scouts are hiding in the bushes. The first is spotted and the other is being spotted. But not for long. That's because it didn't hide its checkpoint. The first tank exposes its gun, machine gun, antenna, and even the corners of the hub itself. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that all checkpoints are covered. It provides good spotting and is still intact. See? That's what knowing the game mechanics can do.
By the way, about the mechanics, vision rays are not endless. The maximum view or spotting range is 445 meters, and the maximum draw distance is 565 meters. You need to understand the difference between these terms. View range is the maximum distance at which you can spot the enemy, and the draw distance is the maximum distance at which you can see the vehicles in general. Both allied vehicles and enemy vehicles spotted by your team. Depending on the distance between vehicles, the vision rays have different frequencies. The highest frequency is at a distance of 120 meters. The greater the distance between vehicles is, the lower the frequency of rays will be.
And now, let's get some practice in. There are 3 circles on your minimap. The big circle shows the draw area. The middle circle shows the maximum view range area. And the small circle shows the current view range of your vehicle. These are not just circles. These are important game tools. And you need to use them. Every time you shoot at the enemy within the maximum view range circle, you risk being spotted. With all enraging
Uy, sí, una locura, pero no me demoré mucho. No, yo así, putica, los trasquilo y suerte. Sí, los niños un chicharrón.
But that's not all. If the enemy vehicle is so far away that you can only see it on the minimap, it doesn't mean you're out of play. You can guesstimate the direction of fire on the minimap. To do so, use the pointer. When the sector's defined, you look through your sight at the most probable enemy location. Fire! Bingo! Isn't that beautiful? Of course, you won't land with every shot. But I love tanks for the moments like this one. Also remember one simple thing. No tank in the game has a maxed out view range to begin with. To be a really cool scout, you need to upgrade your ride. This is down to you alone. You choose for yourself what to equip your vehicle with and how to train your crew. Don't screw it up.
Documentation shows the initial vehicle characteristics, assuming that it's manned with a 100% trained crew without any additional skills and perks, and there's no equipment or consumables on the vehicle. To improve your view range fully, you first need to equip your vehicle with coated optics or binocular telescope. In some cases, you can mount both, but keep in mind, bonuses from used pieces of equipment are not total. When stationary, you get an additional 25% to your view range, in motion 10%. Second, you need to train your commander. Every additional 1% of the commander's major qualification improves the vehicle's view range by 0.43%.
Sí, pero tengo la cámara tapada.
Qualification, you need to equip your vehicle with ventilation, the national food or drink consumable, and train your crew with the brothers in arms. Also, it would be good to train the commander with the recon skill and the radio operator with the situational awareness skill. And don't forget about Sixth Sense. This is one of your main allies in the battle. If the enemy spots your vehicle, you'll receive the alert about it in 3 seconds. Ignoring it will make your trip to the garage arrive sooner.
This is all well and good, but sometimes 3 seconds is too long. And you also have your brain, not just the light bulb. So use it. If you feel you might have been spotted, don't wait for the light bulb. Roll back to a safe place beforehand. Your crew won't exactly say thank you, but their gratitude will certainly show itself later on. Remember that if your commander is injured, their sixth sense won't work, and your vision range drops by half. In this case, any enemy will out-scout you, so don't even try to spot them. The result is pretty obvious. When the tank's equipped with all the necessary equipment and consumables, when the crew is trained, the numbers say that the vehicle view range can exceed 500 meters. But the maximum view range of the game is 445. So why do you need all those skills, equipment, and consumables? It seems you could just raise it to the maximum and stop. But things aren't that simple. Let's do a small experiment. Let's take 2 scouts. Identical at first glance, but the view range on the first one is 445 meters, and the second scout has a view range of 507. There are several enemy vehicles behind the hill. The first scout rolls out and shows us 4 tanks. Well, not bad. Now let's see how many vehicles the second scout will spot. Wow, it's amazing. It lit them up like a Christmas tree. 10 vehicles. And it's not a bug or an accident. That's the tank's improved view range. Every extra meter of the view range is very useful. It sees straight through the enemy's camouflage. To reinforce its importance, let's do another experiment. Let's take the same scouts and put them on the airfield map. The crew isn't trained with camouflage, and there's no camo on the tank either. So neither have any advantage in concealment. Everything depends purely on their view range. Now, let the tanks move towards each other, and we'll see what distance they get each other in their sights. The RU-251 with a view range of 507 meters spots the enemy at 427 meters. And its opponent hasn't seen anyone yet. And only now, after the precious seconds are gone, it's finally spotted. The rangefinder shows 375 meters. But why is that? Shouldn't it be 445?
That's because every vehicle in the game also has concealment parameters, not just a view range. The vehicle's concealment is affected by the vehicle type, size, and presence of special equipment and consumables. Vehicle concealment gets worse when firing and on the move.
But we'll tell you about that in the next episode. And that's all for today. Use these mechanics and win more.
¿Y por qué andas mal, Jorge? ¿Andas mal de salud o qué le pasa? ¿A qué te refieres con mal? Ay, Colombia es muy bella.
Just look at this. Almost 8 tons of German high alloy steel. A threat to any enemy. The most powerful gun in World of Tanks. Thousands dream of it. Millions tremble before it. But sometimes, even this gun can't compensate for the outstanding skills of a player. To avoid this happening too often, today we'll talk about armor penetration.
¿Qué? Ah, ¿la pila? ¿La nueva? Woman.
Any gun has a standard set.
Woman.
Damage, accuracy, aim sight, and rate of fire. But all this is useless if you're unable to penetrate the armor. To fire effectively, you should learn how penetration mechanics work. Understand their principles. Let's start with some theory from our confidential informant.
Every shell in the game has its penetration capability. The documentation specifies its average value when firing from 100 meters. The actual penetration can be 25% higher or lower. The damage caused is calculated in a similar manner.
Thanks, CI. Let's go further and have a small experiment. We'll take 2 T-57 Heavy and 2 AMX tanks. This choice is not accidental. Both vehicles feature 120mm guns, equal average damage, and almost the same penetration with armor-piercing and high-explosive shells. The key difference is the type of premium shells they have. The AMX features armor-piercing composite rigid shells, and the T-57 Heavy can fire high-explosive anti-tank shells. The targets are placed not far from our vehicles. I don't think any of the tanks will have problems penetrating their armor, but let's see. The first tank fires an AP shell, the second shoots an APCR shell, the third vehicle goes for a heat shell, and the fourth fires an HE shell. None of them had a problem. Let's make the task more complicated. We'll put the targets behind cover and repeat the experiment. As you can see, the result is a bit different. The HE shell dealt only splash damage, and the heat shell got stuck in the fence. But this isn't over yet. Now we're going to remove the obstacles and take the target a bit further away. The guns fire and the result is different again. Few people realize that different shell types would be best for firing at the same target in different situations. To do this correctly, you need some theory.
As you know, there are 4 shell types, each with its unique properties. The main shell type used by most tanks is the armor-piercing shell. These shells fly quickly, but their penetration capability slightly reduces with distance. Their penetration capability also reduces when they hit a destructible object, like a fence or a vehicle. The fastest shells are APCR ones. Only weekends pass by faster. APCR shells can go through fences too, but with distance they lose their penetration capacity more than AP shells. The heat shell is a different story. Its penetration capability doesn't depend on the range and remains the same along its entire trajectory. But this comes at a price. This shell is the slowest one, and if it hits a fence, it won't go any farther. HE shells fly almost as fast as AP ones, and they don't lose their penetration power with distance. After hitting any object, an HE shell detonates, and its fragments can damage a vehicle nearby. In addition, these shells have the highest potential damage and the lowest penetration capability.
And now let me give you some pieces of advice. If you want to cause damage through fences, fire AP shells or APCR shells. To fire at a slow and well-armored vehicle located far away, you'll hardly find anything better than the heat shell. If you take a shot at scouts from a long distance, the ideal choice is the APCR shell. And if your enemies are paper thin, send them some high-explosive parcels. And some more tips. Any destructible building consists of sections. If you want to destroy the building quickly, fire an HE shell at the joint between these sections. You can also use an HE shell to knock down a tree, or knock off the base capture without exposing yourself to enemy fire. With a large caliber HE shell, you can even shoot down an airplane. That last one is a joke, of course, but the rest work. So, we already know how shells fly, but what about all these hits, ricochets, penetrations, and non-penetrations?
That's simple. We have 2 parameters, shell penetration capacity and armor thickness. Both are measured in millimeters. If the first number is higher than the second one, the enemy receives damage. Arithmetic, first grade. However, this is true when the shell hits the armor at a right angle. In other cases, the penetration power is calculated differently. Let's take a point on the armor and draw a tangent and a normal through it. Speaking simply, a perpendicular line. The shell's angle of entry is an angle between the normal and the projectile's trajectory. In this case, the shell has to penetrate a much thicker layer of armor. The relative armor is calculated as the ratio of the nominal armor thickness to the cosines of the entry angle. The smaller this angle is, the higher the chance of penetrating the armor, and vice versa. Geometry, 7th grade. prey.
That's why you shouldn't always fire rapidly. Sometimes it's better to wait a few seconds and fire with certainty. Each vehicle has its weak spots. Normally, these are the cupola, driver's hatch, and lower glacis plate. However, if there isn't any chance to choose, the theory will help you again.
To ensure higher shell effectiveness, the design of shells allowed them to shift, adjusting to the normal vector. This resulted in thinner relative armor. This effect is called shell normalization. The normalization angle for AP shells is 5 degrees. The normalization angle for APCR shells is 2 degrees. Heat shells are not subject to normalization at all. Neither are HE shells.
That's how it looks in practice. The armor plate thickness is 38 millimeters. The shell's entry angle is 60 degrees. In this case, the thickness of the relative armor is 76 millimeters, which is 1 millimeter thicker than the maximum allowed penetration capability of the shell. However, we know that AP shells normalize by 5 degrees. Due to this, the relative armor thickness decreases, which gives us an opportunity to penetrate the vehicle's armor. Not each time, but still. But there's more than that. Using a high caliber will allow...
And now we will talk about one of the main axioms of armor penetration mechanics, the two calibers rule. This rule says, if the shell caliber is more than twice the nominal armor thickness, the shell's shift angle to the normal vector increases according to the formula.
So, if you use a higher caliber, the normalization factor will greatly increase. The target, the angle, and the armor penetration performance is the same, but the shell has to pierce 50 millimeters of armor instead of 66 millimeters. Now, each shot results in damage. But that's too simple. Let's increase the angle. It's still able to penetrate, but wait. What do we have here? Ricochet.
By the way, talking of ricochets, AP shells and APCR shells ricochet at an angle of 70 degrees or more, losing 25% of their penetration capability. Heat shells ricochet at an angle of more than 85 degrees with no loss to their penetration capability. HE shells don't ricochet at all. And now it's high time for another important axiom in World of Tanks, the 3 calibers rule. It only applies to AP shells and APCR shells and says the following. If the shell caliber is more than twice the nominal armor thickness, there will be no ricochet. Whatever the thickness of the relative armor, the shell will attempt to penetrate it at any angle.
Whoa, easy. In summary, if the angle is more than 70 degrees, there's no point in using AP shells or APCR shells, unless you're trying to aim at an enemy vehicle hiding behind a building, or you're firing from a really big gun. If you use heat shells, you can fire at even greater angles. However, note that this type of shell doesn't normalize, and it will have to pierce the whole thickness of the relative armor. So don't be too surprised if you hear, we didn't penetrate their armor.
We didn't penetrate their armor.
But we're not finished. We haven't mentioned the screens. When an armor-piercing or armor-piercing composite rigid shell hits spaced armor, the following happens. The entry angle and the shell's precise penetration capacity are calculated. At the same time, the ricochet and the 3 calibers rule are being verified. If neither of the two is triggered, normalization and relative armor thickness are calculated. Then, if the shell has enough piercing power, it penetrates the screen. But its penetration capability is reduced by the value of relative armor thickness. Then, if the projectile hits the main armor, The above-mentioned calculations are made again. And it's only after this that damage is or isn't inflicted on the enemy vehicle. When a heat shell hits the screen, the situation is somewhat different. The 3 calibers rule doesn't apply here. The ricochet angle is different and the shell doesn't normalize. Hence, the cumulative jet attempts to pierce the screen at the same angle as the shell's trajectory. If the armor has been penetrated, this jet will lose 5% of its armor-piercing power for every 10 centimeters of traveled distance. That's why heat shells rarely deliver damage when hitting spaced armor or tracks. The effect on the armor made by the high explosive shells is quite a long story, which we'll tell you next time. And now, a few words about one painful issue. This doesn't happen very often, but every time it does, players get frustrated. This message should be familiar to every tanker. It's played when a shell penetrates the screen, but doesn't hit the tank's main armor. And if a shell penetrates the screen, then hits the main armor, but fails to penetrate it, the player hears,
We didn't penetrate your armor.
¿Recuerdas cuando mandé el celular de mi hermanito a volar unos globos? ¿Qué es lo más bonito de tantos globos volando? Que ese celular esté ahí. Pues bueno, supongo que esto es el karma. Ella tenía miedo de montar el helicóptero y yo solamente quería alimentar su miedo molestándolo un poquitico, pero nunca me esperé que pasara esto. ¿Recuerdas cuando mandé el celular? 4 vatos que morimos.
¿Por qué no me pediste ayuda? Yo lo llamé a todos, pero supongo que estaba ocupado, algo así, igual, desde semana. Yo también me sentía mal. Qué lástima. top of the world. I'm on top of the world.
Salgo con la y prenderla de nuevo. Ay. Pa' que lo hay, que lo hay, pa' que lo hay, que lo voy para que salgo con la y prenderla de nuevo.
¿Qué pasaría si te...
Confirmado, un vaso de agua y un título de derecho no se le niega a nadie. El derecho es el punto de norma.
So, how are you? Come around? The assault's already begun. You need to hurry.
Let's come up with a name for the shaman as well.
In honor of your grandfather?
His name was Rudy. That'll certainly scare the enemy, but I'm afraid you won't be able to spell it. Maybe Battle Wagon? How's about that name?
It sounds too German.
Stalled again or what? Let's roll, Sherman. Here we go. Let's make some extra holes in that there clunker. Aim at an enemy vehicle and fire. Destroyed. Let's move to town. What about this machine? Still fear, but it's not very original. Say it's Thunderbolt. Oh, let's go where they're doing. What a spectacular fire show. Two opponents at 12 o'clock. Fire! Fire, death machine, fire! They need a shorter aim. Holy smokes, that was a close call. There's a German Panzer. Fire AP shells. Eyes peeled, Commander. Let's drive around to the right. He ain't getting away from us. Let's chase him. Reaper? Now a Reaper.
No estoy jugando, mi amor.
Forward, forward, forward. There's no time to waste. Let's move. They need us in town. Come on. Keep up, Sherman. Don't just stand there, drive. Self-propelled car, 12 o'clock. Destroy it, pronto. Oh, you piece of... You'll answer for that. Yes, we all picked lucky. It just came out. I guess we call you lucky. Scroll the mouse wheel to enter sniper mode. believe sniper.
What's wrong? New enemy. Move to the center. Stay focused.
Oh, there's plenty for everyone. Knock them down.
Nada más piensa, ¿no? ¿Qué está haciendo?